What's going on, everyone? My name is Nicholas Merton here at DataDash, and today is November 6th of 2017. Well, folks, as you all keep up with the channel, you know that a few days out of each week, I recap on all of the daily price action, news, and topics related to cryptocurrency. And today we've got a lot to talk about in regards to price action. First and foremost, we have to talk about Bitcoin and overall cryptocurrency market cap. A lot of you are curious about where I stand on current markets right now after my recent video, as well as the fact that Bitcoin had its first major pullback day after 6 days of exuberant run-up in its price action. So today we're going to be talking about that, as well as my views on crypto markets and talking about how we could potentially be setting up for a correction. Along with that, we have to look at the large caps, the top 5 players in the market, as well as a mid cap that's on the larger end that got a lot of volume over the past few hours. We're going to be talking more about that as we go through the video. Along with that, we have an ICO player that has been killing it in the market recently ever since its launch and went through a very stellar ICO reversal. And I'm definitely considering on doing a coin coverage video on that ICO, seeing as a lot of my Aussies are very proud behind the project. Along with that, we've got to be talking about a few other things, such as headlines. There was a big headline coming out how Bitcoin not only has been reaching all-time highs, but along with that, it has been ranking amongst world-renowned currencies. Now I think around 30, I think it was 32 or something, as we'll see throughout the video, in the sense of its overall valuation. So very interesting stuff. And the last one is a recent trade that I recently plugged in on Binance, something that I'm very interested in, an ICO that I'm actually optimistic at these levels. And we'll talk about that more as we go throughout the video. But anyways, everyone, let's go ahead and dive into it. First thing I want to talk about is overall market cap. Now, as we take the overall view here, we can see that we are well through our third bull run here for cryptocurrencies in 2017. And as we take a closer look here on the month of the last month of price action, we can see that as the data will load here, it took a second, we can see that we're still seeing resistance at 200 and are now looking at potentially getting maybe a little bit of a pullback to see if we can hold the mass majority of this run up. Again, I have yet to get fully bearish on these markets because there is so much optimistic news coming out. However, I think, as I covered in my previous video and as I'll talk about as I look at Bitcoin, there has been a lot of speculation at these levels. And the amount of exuberance and the amount of people FOMOing into cryptocurrencies over the past week or two is definitely giving some signals that this market might be overbought. So I'm just saying, more than anything, be cautious here, folks, because we are at all-time highs in crypto markets, generally speaking. We're $4 billion away in valuation from all-time highs. So again, we gotta be fair here. I mean, this has had a fantastic run-up. If we take a look, really at the past month and a half, we've gone from 100 billion all the way up and doubled practically our overall valuation back to 200 billion. So again, not much higher than we were in the overall coin market cap back in August, but again, it is 100% run up, so something to definitely note. You know, big evens like that, big run-ups where there's 50% run-ups, 100% run-ups, 150% run-ups, those are things you have to counter into your trading strategies. Now, if you're investing, I don't think there's anything to worry about right now until there's any kind of serious kind of catalyst coming in the market that might cause another funding session like we saw back during the whole Jamie Dimon China situation. So after that, let's go ahead and take a look real quick at a perspective of the markets. Right now, even though we're seeing a correction in Bitcoin going from around 7,600 down to the low 7,000 range, even though Bitcoin has been having this pullback, altcoins have been faring relatively well. We've definitely seen a lot of recently launched ICOs that were on the lower end of valuation, some that are on the lower of the 100, as well as under the 100 coins. Definitely getting a little bit of an uptick in price action, as we'll take a look into in a little bit. But for now, the major thing that I'm noticing is really that altcoin markets as a whole are holding up relatively well as Bitcoin has been pulling back. Now, they're not mooning by any means. We're not having a complete reversal yet. However, they are faring well in their valuations. And if it's doing this while Bitcoin's pulling back, if its market cap is holding, that means their Bitcoin comparatives are going up. So as we'll take a look throughout the video, we will take a look at some of those altcoins. But first, as I promised, we will take a look at Bitcoin. So I did a video talking about, is it too late to buy Bitcoin? Now, I do want to clear the smoke on one thing. I know that title might seem a little misleading, and I don't intend for it to be that way, because I'm more addressing the question that a lot of people are asking now. I know many of you in the space, I can tell by the amount of people who are joining Coinbase, they have all those records public and everything, of how new people were joining into Coinbase and all these exchanges to get into crypto. and they feel like, oh God, I'm going to miss out on it. Should I get into Bitcoin now? That kind of thing that I always talk about, that kind of irrational mindset that's so eager to get into something and they feel so, terrible. They almost want to beat themselves up over missing out on Bitcoin. Folks, on the long term of things, I don't think you're missing out on anything. You can get in whatever you like, and I think we're just at the beginning of the grand scheme of this run-up. That's my opinion. But again, I do believe in Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies long term. However, I don't like seeing people who don't have the willpower to hold long term. If that's your objective, I don't like seeing people who don't have the will to hold long term get into markets when it's not the right time. And that's what I meant by my video. Now, as you all know, I'm very set on Bitcoin going up long term. I could easily see it going to 10, 20, 30, 40K in the next year. And, potentially if we get a serious exponential run up, another bull run, towards the end of 2018, 2019, 2020, I think by that time period, you could see Bitcoin really go exponential. However, in the short term of things, in the sense of actual transactions being processed, in the sense of actual adoption and being used as a currency, in the sense of actually fixing the serious issue that's holding Bitcoin back right now, which is scalability, this isn't justified in my opinion. A lot of this. There's a few other things. We have volatility, as we took a look at lows, and it's starting to curve up now. We have to wait for the next day to come in before we can look at the indicator, as we'll take a look at, I think, later on during this week on another daily update. But it's going to start curving up now because we had this first sell-off. And as we've seen in the past, much like with the previous sell-off back here and here, we saw volatility around the 3 to 3.5% range, which is where it's at now. It has been a clear indicator for the past two sell-offs that markets are looking, or past two run-ups that markets are looking to start to correct. And I mean, you got to take a look at this chart. When I talk about exponential, I'm not lying, folks. We really did see an exponential breakout. Whereas if we were to follow the channel that Bitcoin was riding through, Bitcoin would have stopped here, but it didn't. It went exponential, and it went up to around the $7,500 range, a price level we had talked about back here. Now, I'll be fair though, I didn't think it was going to do that after a while. I started to see this kind of shaky price action, and I was thinking, markets are probably looking to correct here. It's been a good run up, but at the time, I think market cap valuation was sitting around 175 billion, and I was thinking that it was a double top in the overall market cap valuation, big even, and we've seen it before. However, the news came out that the CME Group is going to be launching in quarter 4 of 2017 Bitcoin futures. Now, if you all don't know, derivatives markets are massive. It's multi-trillion-dollar markets, more than I think you and I can even imagine in the sense of valuation. So, I mean, this would be huge to have Bitcoin futures. However, at the same time, we do not have a confirmed date for it, as well as that Bitcoin, no matter if there's futures coming into it and speculative markets wanting to trade it, Bitcoin is at all-time highs, relatively speaking. We have to keep in mind that a Wall Street investor does not buy usually at all-time highs. Again, though, this is almost .com 2.0 in the sense of the price action for Bitcoin. So we'll have to, see if it does lead to any price positivity. Not to mention, we've got the fork coming as well. And a lot of people are faring away from that. So again, these continued forks are starting to give Bitcoin a bad name as well, as I've talked about. We can't keep forking the currency. And I could ramble on about it. You can go watch my video on it. I think that'd probably give you the best details on it. But again, I'm not exuberantly bearish on the market, as I'm not exuberantly bullish. Right now, I'm more in a neutral state, leaning towards the bearish side, because I know, generally speaking, we buy low after a pullback and we sell high. And when people are getting greedy, when people are saying, no, it's going to 10K, there's no way it can go down from here. The futures are guaranteeing that, and with the Amazon speculation and stuff like that, you realize that a lot of that overt optimism that you're seeing in the market from people is coming from speculation. It's coming from people saying, but yeah, Amazon's going to start taking Bitcoin and all the futures are going to lead it to new highs. Folks, there's no guarantee of that. Not to mention, generally speaking, we follow our rules here on this channel. When you see this kind of exponential price action, when you see it breaking out of normal, more kind of steady trends, along with that, you're at all-time highs. You should think the opposite of what other people are thinking if you want to play it smart. If you want to trade markets, this is what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about investing. If you're investing in it, just solely investing, you don't want to try to time the market, don't worry about it. Just hold it and hopefully hope for a pullback so you can add more. But on a trading sense, you want to wait for a pullback. You want to wait till things correct and get a little more stable. And right now, Bitcoin hasn't been stable. The wicks have been extremely extended on candles, and that shows uncertainty, especially when it's on the top end of the candle. If it's on the bottom end, not the end of the world. But if you're seeing continued resistance, as we did see here, we had an ascending wedge where the price action was clearly showing that it needed a pullback. We got that pullback over the past few hours. And the question is here is if Bitcoin can really hold against the 200 hour. If it sees resistance at the 50 hour here, or sorry, this is the 21 hour. Take the 50 hour up here. If we see resistance at the 50 hour, if we get maybe a little bit of a rebound up to see if it can get back up and try to test the highs again, if we get that resistance at the 50 hour, that is going to be a bad deal for Bitcoin. And that will most likely mean, at least in my opinion, what I'm assuming will happen will be a breakdown below the 200 hours. The 200 hours coming up, and this is coming downward. It's going to be decided very soon whether or not Bitcoin's going to move to new highs, going all the way to 10K, which is my next level if it's bullish. If it does get past these highs at 7,600, it's probably going to 10K into hopes for the futures traders. But to be honest, I'm leaning much more towards the side of it pulling back at this level, folks. You can only get so exuberant about it. I love Bitcoin to death, but there are short-term pullbacks. There are corrections. It is inevitable at one point or another. So in this very volatile market, you got to be careful at these all-time highs. And more than anything, I'm just advising, be cautious if you're adding at these levels. So enough ranting on Bitcoin stuff. Guys, I love it and stuff, and I'm not trying to, I know many of you out there don't want me talking negative about it, but I gotta be fair and honest with you all. When I see something that's looking a little bit shaky, as someone who's traded for 6 to 7 years in markets and has looked at charts like it's a drug to me. I love watching price action. Again, you've got to be cautious at these levels. Keep a little bit of perspective in mind. We have had a fantastic run up in 2017. It would not be irrational to think that we might get a correction, and not just a normal China correction, a good 50% pullback in Bitcoin. And that wouldn't mean the end of the world, but again, just something to keep in mind at these levels where things have gone so exponential in price action. All right, so that's enough of me going on about it. Just wanted to share my opinion on Bitcoin, because I know many of you out there are very curious as to not only where I stand on it, but also what the general tone is. Next up, Ethereum. Ethereum right now is looking interesting. I'm going to keep on talking about how, I'm not trying to just prop up altcoins, but altcoins which have been very sold off comparative to Bitcoin, we sometimes have to, trade the opposite of what the market is planning to do. So if for example, a lot of people are FOMOing on Bitcoin, don't be focusing on Bitcoin. Don't focus where the mass majority of the market's focusing. Focus on where people aren't talking. Focus on where things are cheap. Focus on things like as you would go into the store to find a discount. Ethereum at a massive discount comparative to Bitcoin. This is just, again, we're starting to finally find some support down here, and we're looking at a potential opportunity to really see this start ticking up again. How much, I don't know. You really cannot do too much technical analysis here. However, what I do like is that we didn't even come down to do a double bottom. We're starting to curve back upwards. This is definitely more positive in the sense of price action. So we break down here to the hourly. We can see here whether or not Ethereum is going to come up against this price action. I think if you could get a close above 4,400,000 Satoshis, I'd feel very optimistic about this. But we'll have to see if it can sustain itself. I think that's it's really a question of whether or not Bitcoin continues to pull back, and not overall market. If overall market fear doesn't pour in, it's just simply a correction in Bitcoin. It's a nice, slow, steady correction in Bitcoin. If Bitcoin starts diving, you might get a short-term run-up in altcoins, but I think that's going to cause overall panic in markets. Again, no reason to think that right now. But I think right now what you're going to see is a flip of altcoins. Altcoins getting a little bit of benefit. And Ethereum being the second largest crypto, this could be a very safe trade, a safe long-term investment addition right here. You really got to think about it. It's not a recommendation. Just, keep an eye on it. It looks pretty good at these levels. Remember, we buy low, we sell high. Simple principles. And Ethereum's a great project on a fundamental sense. All right, so next up, we've got Bitcoin Cash. A lot of people have still been asking me about Bitcoin Cash and how it's been holding very well. It has. Right now, what I'm thinking about Bitcoin Cash in the sense of a trade opportunity. As you all know, I'm going to be talking about what I'm going to be doing going into the fork, and I'll let you all know my whole strategy on that in the next day or two. I'm just going to produce the video for it. I want to spend some time to really make it quality as well. But in the case of Bitcoin Cash, a lot of people have been asking about this as being a trade opportunity going into the fork. Now, I don't really know exactly why it would be. I guess it's in the sense of if we have SegWit2x not get adopted, you have this alternative solution for the people who did support SegWit2x. It says, oh wait, no, SegWit2x didn't get adopted, but you got Bitcoin Cash here that does have the increased block size, whatever it may be. Again, I don't see why not, because SegWit2x would still be there, much as and have just as much support as Bitcoin Cash. Again, I don't see why it's really going up at these levels. However, the technical price action does look good. It looks nice at these levels. What I'm assuming could happen in Bitcoin Cash, and what you want to look for, is a potential, maybe a slight little short-term correction, where you could see the price action come down, and you could see the moving average here, the 21-day, come up and act as a level of support. So you see the price action come down here, rides along the average, and comes up during the fork. So, again, I don't really have much of a fundamental feeling on Bitcoin in the long term, but in the short term, this could be a very nice trade. We'll just have to see if it can maintain this momentum, because it has gone up, from around 5 million Satoshis all the way up to 8.5 million. So, again, you got to see if you like Bitcoin Cash long term. If you honestly believe that the block size increases the solution, this might be a good level to add, especially seeing as it's definitely down comparative to its past Bitcoin levels. And with a Bitcoin correction possibly coming, you might see some love for Bitcoin Cash. Again, not my number one trade right now. We have Ripple. Ripple is definitely looking like it's pretty much bottomed at these levels. It's giving me a lot of the same signals that it did over here once it pulled back in August. And I think that even though I'm personally, I'm not looking to make a trade on Ripple right now. I'm not really playing a lot of the large caps. I'm playing more kind of mid, small caps right now. I think that this could be good if you're looking, again, for one of the large caps. And you see a general trend right here, folks. Ethereum, Bitcoin Cash, Ripple, and as we'll look through the video at the other players, you're going to see a lot of these larger cap altcoins starting to look a little bit like they're ready to start taking some uptick in price action, because they've just been down every day, and almost in a sense unjustifiably. It's just been because you're comparing it to Bitcoin. Bitcoin has been killing it, and if you do get that correction in Bitcoin and it's not a flash crash sell-off that causes fear in the markets, it's general logic that you're going to see altcoins come up. So you all know how I feel on these projects long term if you've been watching my channel. But in the short term, again, could be another trading opportunity here. Might see it come up back to around a more fair valuation range around 3,500 Satoshis. Again, I haven't placed any trades on it yet. So next up is Litecoin as well. Litecoin is showing the same signals. Big even number, 7 million Satoshis. Now, I had called for this to pull back to around 750,000 Satoshis. Sorry, my bad. 700,000 Satoshis as a support level. And I thought it was going to go down to 750,000, went a little bit lower. But definitely is holding around here. Now, what you're looking for here, and this is much like with all the other altcoins, you have these big even resistance levels that have been showing for the past few days. They've been sticking their ugly heads out and keeping them from really going up. If you see Bitcoin, again, pull back another day or two, I think it'll have no problem breaking against 800,000 Satoshis, and you could see this come back up to test its previous support, now resistance at 1 million Satoshis. Again, it could be a good trade on Litecoin. That'd be a 25% from these levels, more than 25% if it went up to 1 million Satoshis. So again, maybe keep Litecoin on your radar. Again, there's a lot of these leaders in the market that are cheap right now. But again, it really matters as to whether or not you think Bitcoin's going to go to 10K. If you're going to make these trades and you're going to be timing the market like that, you do have to consider the fact that there might be, a continuation to 10K. So keep that risk in mind as well. Last one I want to talk about, though, and this is out of the top 5, is Manero. This is one that I've been wanting to talk about over the past few hours today because it got a major run-up. And it's playing reminiscent of the past, as we've seen in Manero. If we take a look here, there's a few things that are coming into fruition. We have a base rising support line for Manero here that almost for the fourth time has proven as an area to buy Monero. And I'm so upset at myself because I was literally looking at this last night, but I'm working my job and stuff, and I'm trying to manage things for the Data Dash community and do content on other topics, and I guess I lost sight of it. But again, at the same time, I did not know about this leap, and I couldn't have really gotten in on it because it came up quite quick. This was another South Korean run up. A lot of people were curious as to why this moved up over 20, I think it was more than 20% today. So, we take a look here in the hourly, we can see just how drastic it moved up and the volume that started to pour in on Monero. And keep in mind, this isn't just, funny money coming in. This is serious institutional buying. As you can see, the chart came up and reached at a peak $111 million in volume. So huge stuff for Monero. Now, why is this? Well, like I said, South Korean volume, BitHum, 37%. That's just a huge amount of volume coming in. The South Koreans have definitely been showing this continued trend of massive swarms of purchases in cryptocurrency. Some people theorize that this has to do with fears of North Korea, things like that. Honestly, I think there's just some very large institutional interest in the eastern part of the world. You have China, who again has dominated a large amount of the purchasing, the mining power of cryptocurrencies, as well as you see in other Asian countries like Japan and South Korea. So again, you got to keep in mind here that South Korea is just a very large institutional player, and we have to watch for these volume spikes. A big trading recommendation that I give you, not an actual recommendation, go buy something, but a thing that I always recommend that you watch as you're in the markets. Keep an eye on the new volume that comes into these players. You have a very limited amount of players in BitHum, but you have $1 billion in volume over the past 24 hours. $1 billion. There's so much opportunity if you can keep an eye out on these markets and see if you see any kind of trends where the volume starts to pour towards a different direction. And for example, Monero, only 4% of the total volume was a huge opportunity. So watch the price action of these large caps and see if you see any kind of volume start to, kind of pour in. And if you see it coming from these exchanges, if you see increases on the 24-hour from these South Korean exchanges, know that most likely it could keep going up for the next hour or two, or 3 or 4 hours, and you might be able to make a good swing trade opportunity. Or you might know that, this might be the time to buy for the longer term play, because we can obviously see from Monero's price here that the South Koreans, whoever, in that sense of institutional investors from South Korea, whoever they are, they were obviously playing it, buying the lows. Remember, we always talk about this, folks. I know it seems so simple, and I might be oversimplifying it and playing Captain Hindsight. Oh, look at this opportunity, it was so clear. But again, it's not complex. They don't look for crazy complex technical indicators because it's a new market like this. What you're looking for is support levels. You're looking for areas that are consistent with the past and price history. Look towards the past for reassurance of what's going to happen in the future, because it's most likely doomed to repeat itself. Again, maybe that's a new quote for you. I should say, turn to the past, instead of just what's previous resistance usually tends to become new support. Anyways, I'm going to have to keep on engraving these kind of mindsets into your all's heads. I'm sorry. I want to help teach you all, not just tell you all what to buy and what to do in the markets. That's not my job. I'm here to teach you all. But anyways, another thing that a lot of people have been wanting me to talk about, and something that I've actually wanted to talk about for quite some time, and I almost feel bad because I didn't get to cover it during its ICO, was Power Ledger. Now, this is the biggest Aussie ICO I have seen to date. As all my Aussies out there, my 5,000 plus Aussies who watch the channel, always wanted me to cover Power Ledger. And I got to start off by saying I'm sorry. I was not able to cover it at the time. I even got reached out from, I think it was Gemma, I can't remember her name. I'm terrible about names. But she was the lead on the project, and she was very sweet and stuff. I just never got to reach out to her because at the time I was completely slammed. It was at the peak growth of Data Dash, and I was doing a lot of things setting up the community, as well as looking to come out here towards my new job. So I had many other ICOs reaching out and stuff. And not to mention, I'm very wary about covering ICOs. So I think at the time I was a little bit skeptical. And I definitely would consider now to make up for it in considering covering Power Ledger. Because I know many of you out in Australia want me to cover it. You wanted me to cover it a while ago. And just in general, people have gotten interested in this ICO. This has to do with using solar energy and a few other components as well. You can go through the website and look through it. And it's pretty much monetizing excess energy was a good way to describe it. I think they have a beautiful website here that you can look through. They have good resources such as their white paper, and I know that there's a huge community out there who'd be ready to answer any questions that you might have. However, I gotta say, in the sense of a trading and investing opportunity, me talking about this is not only not a recommendation, I'm just personally not very optimistic at these levels. I think it's run up a little too quick. But it does say something, because there's been lots of headlines tied to Power Ledger that I'll talk about in my video if we go through and cover Power Ledger. But if you all definitely want to see a video on this, leave a comment down below. Thumbs up any other comments that talk about it. Definitely like to hear if you all want me to cover it. But again, take a look at this price action. I mean, it's just been huge. And this is the real reason I wanted to talk about the price action more than anything, is because this is a perfect example of an ICO reversal. Now, what do I mean by that? As you all know, an ICO reversal, as I've talked about on the channel, is when a ICO launches onto an exchange with steady volume, comes down, has its initial correction, as it did, and went from around, had a 50% pullback. This is very common. Went from 1,200 Satoshis down to around the 600 range, and then you have a pullback upwards to the side, to the upside. And then once you get back up here, you see a complete exponential run up in the price action. This is an ICO reversal at its core. Now, you got not only an ICO reversal, but you got something else. You had a pullback afterwards, and it came down to find support on the previous highs. That speaks volume of positivity in the price action. And you should, if you see this on a chart, see, okay, can it hold this for the next few hours? And if it does, look to see if the momentum's starting to pick up. And if you see that, take the opportunity, okay? That is a perfect technical sign that something is showing price strength confirmation, that volume that you see here, this massive buy side action, is not selling off. The volume isn't there to make up for it. And it's that huge volume stack that came in is saying, no, I'm waiting for higher prices. So if you've got a large buyer like that coming in, and the actual selling is not enough to break past the previous highs, then I mean, that's definitely a sign that you might see higher levels in the price action, as we did with Power Ledger. Again, I didn't make a trade in this because I wasn't able to keep up with it. Not only when people wanted me to cover it, but also just recently I've been relatively busy, and I've got some other players that I'm more optimistic on in the sense of trading. But again, I didn't get to take a look at this price action. But if I would have seen something like this, I mean, this is fantastic right here, folks. Just another, not saying, I would have done this. I'm just saying, look at the technical price action here and take it as a lesson. This is clear ICO reversal pattern right here, where it comes up. And not only here, where you could have made a good swing trade, but where you can find that support down here and potentially see another run up. But it looks like it's getting a little bit worn out up here. We'll have to see, though. The Aussies are known to be a fierce crowd, and they might be able to push this even higher. But I think that it's definitely due for a little bit of a correction. And we'll see how it holds. Maybe it might pull an Omise go and just keep going up. And maybe it'll pull back down here to 2,200 Satoshis and, go up to 5,000. Who knows? I don't keep up with it enough, but I'll definitely keep an eye on it nonetheless. Next up, Bitcoin ranked the 32nd global currency by physical money supply. This is the only headline we're really looking at today. I mean, folks, as much as I'm talking about Bitcoin having a short-term correction, this makes me proud. This makes me real happy. I think that it's amazing with how many multi-trillion-dollar currencies there are in the world, with how many large-scale global powerhouses there are in the sense of, that are controlled by the banking system. You have something like this that is a decentralized currency. Really a digital accounting system, decentralized by the people that anyone can connect to. The unbanked populations of the world can now have access to this currency. It's a global currency. There's no borders. It is now the 32nd largest currency in the world. And though there's some issues with it, though I think short term it might pull back, this is huge news. People aren't laughing at Bitcoin anymore. They're getting, as I was talking about, there's FOMO to get in the market. People are going heads over heels, falling over and tripping, trying to get into the market and become a part of this revolution in money. So I don't doubt it in any sense. Again, this is something to be very proud of, especially if you've been in it for quite some time. So Again, hopefully we'll see more headlines like this. I'm optimistic on Bitcoin in the long term, and definitely, as much as I'm not the biggest fan of Cointelegraph and CoinDesk, I do like the little picture they had here. That was pretty rewarding. Take a good sip, my friends. We have been on quite a run up. All right, so for the trade opportunity that I recently took upon myself, and I think you should watch as a potential candidate, is Everix. This has been an ICO that one of my admins had brought up to me. Back a few months ago when it was still in its I think it's pre-sale, or it was very early on its ICO. It's definitely focused on global payments and remittance. Everix has been something that looks a lot more optimistic, especially to where its valuation is right now. But right now I'm more focused on its technical side. The volume has slowed down a little bit, but what I like here is that we're not getting sell side volume. After the pullback here, after the big, exuberant run up where we had, again, another ICO reversal, we have now a bottoming in the price action where we almost had a double bottom here. And we had a contestment where the price came up a little bit and it started to correct. And now it's starting to form a cup in price action. So what I think we could see here is if we get above 24,000 Satoshis, we could get a serious uptick in price action for Everix. Again, there's lots more room for volume to really come in here. I've seen it come in over here. I think we can get it again. It's really a matter of whether or not this can really get back up to these highs again. And that's what I'm looking for here. I really think this could be 100% or doubling of the price if there's enough, long-term investors getting back into this. I like it personally on a moral sense. Remittance, as well as just general global payments and systems that, in this case, are replacing banks, no bank account required. I mean, that's a huge market. Not only is it in a moral sense good, to help people, the 2 billion people who don't have access to the financial system, at even a sliver of the financial system. This whole unbanked population with technologies like Everix now do. So again, I might do a video on Everix as well if you all would like to see this. Again, I know I've been kind of falling behind and covering some of these ICOs, but Everix is something that definitely did grab my attention. Again, I just don't get the time to cover all of these. And if you would like to see something like this getting covered, something that can have settling times of 30 seconds, transaction costs that only take a few cents, and global support at the palm of your hand, on your phone, that can help people who never had access to money get money. That excites me. That's something I'm willing to cover. And again, with this price action, I think this is whether or not you're going to do it in the long term or consider a swing trade. I like these levels. I really do. Now, of course, you got to do your own research. You got to see if you like the Everix project, and you got to see if you like these levels on a technical sense. But I really think that it could, at these levels, start to go back up and not only test its highs and stuff, but if this really takes off long term and we start seeing some expansion with Everix, and I definitely want to do some more research myself as well into the project. If it really is what it kicks up to be, this could be very, very good for the long term. And I definitely would consider making some of my position a long-term holding as well. But we'll have to see. Anyways, everyone, that's it for the video. Thank you all so much for watching. If you all have anything you want me to talk about in future videos or in the next few daily updates or weekly update coming up on Friday, feel free to leave a comment down below. But if you have any general questions as well, don't hesitate to reach out to me in the comments and I'll try to get back to you. And anyways, everyone, that's it for the video. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Stay tuned.